A very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session on EPR ETP and what makes it technically significant. Now, I would like to thank all of the people that are present here to join us in for this webinar. Since this is the first webinar that ReCirculytics is hosting, and we are very glad that a lot of people showed interest and a lot of people are joining. So it shows your support for us, and we will look forward to help you with all your EPR compliances and make sure that we can add value to all of your work related to EPR landscape. So we are very glad to see participants from across compliance, sustainability, recycling, and advisory functions, and a lot of industry, different sectors of the industry. Now, this tells us just how relevant this conversation is right now. So before we begin, a quick confirmation. If you guys are able to see the presentation on the screen and the audio is very much clear for all of you, you can just show reactions like thumbs up and everything. So I see a lot of thumbs up. So thank you for that. And please feel free. So the chat box will remain like off for so that nobody is able to put up or disrupt the conversation that we are having. But the Q&A section will be always on. So if you have any questions, any doubts, any queries, please feel free to use the Q&A section. So now let me introduce myself first of all. So I am Arushi Thakur and I will be your host. I will be your moderator for today's session. And I will be helping you navigate this particular webinar. And I am the lead growth and partnership here in ReCirculytics. And yeah, I look forward to this particular webinar and all of your participation in it. So we will try and keep it like, a little interactive. So please feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A section so that we can address those all the questions towards the end of the session. So now to set the context, let me briefly introduce ReCirculytics first. So ReCirculytics was founded in August 2025 with a very clear purpose to bring clarity, structure, and predictability to India's rapidly evolving EPR landscape. Now, as EPR expanded across multiple waste streams, plastic packaging, battery waste, e-waste, tires, used oil, the compliance environment became increasingly fragmented, data heavy, and operationally complex. Now, ReCirculytics was created to bridge this gap by combining regulatory depth with analytics-driven execution. Now, today we provide end-to-end EPR compliance support across all the notified waste streams, helping organizations remain compliant, competitive, and future-ready. Now, at the core of ReCirculytics is its founder, Mr. Sujain Jain. So Sujain is a first attempt chartered accountant and one of the early pioneers of India's EPR compliance ecosystem. Now, he has himself supervised 400 plus annual return filings and worked very closely with Fortune 500 companies and global packaging leaders. And he brings deep hands-on expertise in regulatory reporting, credit management, and digital compliance workflows. Now, more importantly, his work has consistently focused on translating policy intent into practical, executable systems, which is exactly what today's discussion on EPR ETP is about. Now, before we move into today's topic, a quick snapshot of how ReCirculytics supports organizations across the EPR lifecycle. So our work spans 4 key verticals, first being compliance. So registrations and amendments across EPR portals, annual return filings and documentation support, capacity building and EPR awareness. And then we have consultancy, legal and regulatory impact analysis, transaction and fulfillment advisory, packaging footprint assessments, regulatory representation, and EPR due diligence, EPR policy advocacy, compliance audit, and governance strengthening. The third is being credits, wherein credit generation and portal management, direct credit procurement support, transparent price discovery, and strategic fulfillment planning. Last but not the least, technology, which is the most important part, wherein automation of reporting and submissions, data integration from ERP to compliance workflows, and cloud-based dashboards and analytics. Along with that, digital credit statements as well. Now, this combination of compliance, consulting, credits, and technology is what allows us to look at EPR not just as a filing exercise, but as a system. So, supporting this system is our in-house technology tools. And these include, first of all, your GST e-invoice to Excel converters that act as a pre-validation layers for before you upload any data on the CPCB portals. Next is your JSON to PDF tools, which have sensitive field masking. Tally ERP integrations to capture CPCB mandated data directly at source. Automated CPCB bulk upload frameworks, and then EPR credit intelligence, which offers weekly consolidated insights across the portals. Now, the reason I am highlighting this now, all of these tools now, because EPR ETP will significantly increase the role of clean data, automation, and system readiness, which we will obviously touch upon again towards the end. So now coming towards the agenda, now we will be covering background and basics of ETP, core ETP concepts, price discovery mechanism, trade settlement process, Q&A and discussion towards the end. So before we begin, I have a few quick housekeeping points for everyone. So please keep yourself on mute, although all the participants are on mute and are not allowed to switch on their cameras or share the screen, so that no nuisance is created. Although I know everybody here is like, they understand all of these rules. And then the chat box is disabled, and the Q&A section is obviously switched on. So if you have any queries, doubts, please feel free to drop in your question there. And please avoid any kind of marketing or anything, because we want to keep this conversation very informative so that everybody who is present in this webinar takes value home, so that they understand EPR ETP better and they can prepare for it. So this session will entirely be informational and interpretative in nature. Now, with that, let me set a very simple foundation for today's discussion. So, as you know, all the conversation around the EPR credits today, they focus on either buying or selling. So, however, what's changing with EPR ETP is not just where credits are traded, but how this entire market structure operates, how prices are discovered, who participates, what flexibility exists, and where the discretion reduces. Now, EPR ETP represents a shift from relationship-driven transactions to a regulated exchange-based mechanism. Like all of us know that how the market right now works, that you know a recycler, or maybe like you have some good connection with the recycler or anything, so you could have your prices and then you can make a deal. But once EPR ETP comes in, that relationship-driven transactions will not be there anymore, and it will be shifted to a regulated exchange-based mechanism. So now, to help us understand the shift, not just theoretically, but practically, we now hand over the session to our speaker. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Sujain Jain, founder of ReCirculytics. So Sujain has been deeply involved in the EPR ecosystem since its formative years. Now, working closely with regulators, brands, recyclers, and compliance teams. His experience spans regulatory design, reporting architecture, credit strategy, and digital compliance workflows, making them uniquely placed to explain what EPR ETP really means on the ground. So with this, Sujain, over to you. The screen is yours, and let's start.
Thank you, Arushi. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining in today. So I understand it's Friday and we all need to log off from our work sessions. So we'll keep it strong. And informative. So before getting into the technical parts of what is price auction, what is continuous price market, we'll first try to understand what is the journey and how did this electronic trading platform come into the picture. Initially, from 2022 to 2025, there were various environmental compensation guidelines which were issued under various EPR frameworks. I guess we have seen multiple revisions in plastic waste, e-waste. There is one guidelines which was issued, I guess, in September 2024. Battery waste has its guidelines in 2024. Tire waste similarly. Used oil, I guess there is a draft, but I am not sure if it was finalized. So, firstly, the environmental compensation guidelines were issued. Post that, from 2023, there have been amendments in the existing EPR frameworks, wherein there were amendments in plastic waste management rules, battery waste management rules, e-waste waste management rules, and tire waste management rules, wherein there was a provision introduced in these rules, wherein an exchange or an electronic trading platform, the concept was put in the rules. For other EPR regimes like used oil, ELV, and whatever upcoming regimes are there, like construction and demolition waste, non-ferrous metal scraps, for these rules, there since the incorporation, since the inception, the rules have been incorporated with the electronic trading platform. Post that, on December 2024, the guidelines were issued for authorization of an electronic trading platform operator and how will the whole electronic trading platform function. These guidelines were uploaded on the EPR portal in December 2024. Post that, we saw a regulatory filing by MSTC wherein it had disclosed that it has been recommended and subsequently awarded a contract for development and operation of an electronic trading platform for EPR certificates. So yes, this is the journey which we have the visibility right now. Looking at it, we will always need some kind of comparables to understand, how the things work, because of course it is new for all of us. We have never traded on an exchange for EPR credits. We had always called a guy and he had provided it to us. So what we have tried to do is we have taken in two different types of trading platforms which are environment related and which are currently operational. So there is the Gujarat Particulate Matter Emissions Trading Scheme, which is operated by NCDX, and then there is a renewable energy certificate market, that is REC market, and we have compared it with the EPR ETP. So if you see principally in Gujarat Emissions Trading Scheme, the categories of buyer and seller are the same people. So let's say there are two industries who are trying to trade between each other. And there is a third participant, that is the Gujarat Pollution Control Board, who themselves cover 20% of the market and becomes a market participant in that trading scheme. In this case, there is no alternate compliance route for them. So for example, if there is a company who has reduced their emissions, they will have to buy less. So it is either through their own performance, or if they are increasing their emissions, in that case, they will have to buy the credit from their peer entities who have the certificates available with that. In case of RECs, if you see the obligated, the buyers and the sellers are two different category of people. So the buyers are basically the obligated entities like discoms, and the sellers are the generators of renewable electronic and energy generators. But here there is one small catch, that these buyers who can, so let's say in year one, they were sourcing their whole energy requirement through a coal powered power plant. And that year they purchased, let's say, 10 quantity of credits. In the second year, what they can alternatively do is they can change their sourcing to a solar power plant and accordingly reduce the buying of REC certificates. So, but the EPR ETP, if you see in that sense, is a little different. Here, the buyers and the sellers, just like REC, are two different entities. The buyers are the registered recyclers. The buyers are basically the obligated entities, like in plastic we have PIBO and SIMP. In battery, e-waste, used oil, we have producers. The sellers are people like recyclers, waste processors, refurbishers, retraders. These people will be coming to sell the credits on the exchange, and the obligated entities will want to buy those credits. Structurally, these two groups are two different groups, but reading at the current guidelines, it seems that of the exchange trading will not be allowed within the entities. I understand it is still not very clear, but if you see the rules, it clearly mentions that only trading between these entities would be allowed. And going beyond that, they have also mentioned if an entity has a recycling plant in its name and it's also obligated as a producer, in that case also the trading which these two accounts can do is only allowed for the initial 6 months. Post that, they will not be allowed to do the trading on the exchange portal, beyond outside of the exchange portal. And we try to research globally also whether if there is any market wherein waste credits are being traded and which is regulated by a regulator. So globally also we could not find any of such models. So globally, well, like in Europe, it's very prevalent that compliance schemes or PROs, they do the compliance on behalf of the producers. In Japan, there is the government regulated fees which the producers have to pay to a PRO which is designated by the government, and the PRO takes care of the whole waste management cycle. But India, the EPR credit itself is a new model, and the exchange trading platform is a different thing altogether. Next slide, please, Arshit. So we will try to understand some basic, finance heavy terms which were, mentioned in the guidelines. The first one was double side closed auction. So double side closed auction is basically an auction wherein the buyers and the sellers, they participate together in this type of auction. This auction is only valid for a small period. So for IEX previously it was only available, this auction timing were only available for 2 hours on last Wednesday of each month. So only once in a month this auction happened wherein the buyers and sellers gave their price, which was the maximum price. So buyers will give the maximum price that they are willing to pay for buying the credits, and the seller will give the minimum price at which they are allowed, or if they, at which they are ready to sell their credits. Once these prices are submitted to the exchange will have its own price discovery logic, which I will cover in a very brief practical manner in the further slides. But accordingly, exchange will determine a uniform clearing price. At this price, all the orders which were placed by the buyers above this price will be cleared, and all the orders which were placed by the sellers below this price will be cleared at that price only. Then there is a continuous fixed market period. So once this uniform clearing price is determined, the buyers and the sellers can simultaneously buy and sell at this price for a fixed period of time. In the current guidelines, it is mentioned that this timeline would be of a period of 1 week. So in 1 week, let's say the price determined is 10 rupees for this week, then all the buyers and seller can buy these credits for the particular category at rupees 10 only. There will be no different prices, and the orders will be executed on a first in and first out basis, that is FIFO basis. Like whoever puts the first purchase order will get the first preference if there is a corresponding seller, and likewise. There are some principles also like maximum traded volume and minimum unbalance. I will explain it very briefly in the next slide. Now, for the participants who want to buy and sell their credits on this electronic trading platform, there are two ways wherein you can do it. One is by participating in this auction, and second is by transacting during the continuous fixed market period. So if you are participating through an auction, you will play a role in the price discovery, but the allocation is not guaranteed. But in a continuous, while you are transacting in a continuous fixed price market, there would be no price ambiguity. Like I discussed previously, that the price would always be 10 rupees for that week. But the transaction will only occur if there are corresponding buyers or sellers. Next slide, please, Aisha. Okay, so now coming to how the price discovery mechanism will work. So again, the buyers and the sellers will submit their bid. There is something called as maximum tradable volume selection. So let's say there are 10 bids, out of which they will compare the bids compare the prices at which the highest quantity is being traded. And that quantity at that price would be called the maximum traded volume price. If there are multiple maximum traded volume price, then they will calculate something called as minimum unbalance. Minimum unbalance is essentially to select whatever quantity. So at the end of the day, whatever quantity is the least wherein the transaction will happen at the lowest at the highest quantity. So let's say that the maximum tradable volume is 10 and 11 rupees, and the minimum unbalance is at 11 rupees, wherein the only untraded quantity is just 20 tons. Then the uniform clearing price would be at 11 rupees. Now, once that price is discovered, there would be a trade execution and settlement, wherein on a FIFO basis, the trades would be matched, and successful the trades which are above the UCP or below the UCP in the selling side, they will be processed, and the trades which are on the reverse side, they would be cancelled. Now, I understand I could not explain it also very clearly, so that is why I have got the numbers for you. Next slide, please, Arushi. Yeah. So here we see there are four set of buyers and four set of sellers who have placed their bids at the time of auction. So there are buyer 1, B1, B2, B3, B4 who have given their quantities and who have given their prices. Buyers will give their maximum price at which they are willing to buy, and the sellers, they will give the minimum price at which they are willing to accept, or at which they are willing to sell. Accordingly, once these bids are collected, the exchange will determine the prices. So they will compare the prices accordingly. So if you see at 8 rupees, there are 180 buyers. So the total demand, if you see on the buyer side, all the buyers are willing to accept 8 rupees price. So at 8 rupees, all the buyers will place their order. So the total demand at 8 rupees is 180 tons. But at 8 rupees on the seller front, we only have S1 who is willing to sell at 8 rupees. So in that case, we have a demand of 180 at 8 rupees and a supply of only 30 metric tons. In that case, the maximum trade that is possible is 30 metric tons. Subsequently, if you see at 9 rupees, all the buyers again are ready to buy at 9 rupees. But if you see on the selling side, again there is only S1 who is willing to buy at 9 rupees, willing to sell at 9 rupees. When you come to 10 rupees, there are only S1, B1, B2 and B3 who are willing to give the order or who are willing to buy the price, because B4, he has placed the maximum price as 9 rupees. So he will not be allowed, or he will not be ready to pay 10 rupees credit price. So he will be eliminated from the calculation at 10 rupees. So at 10 rupees, we have a demand of 120 tons. Subsequently, at the 10 rupees on the supply price, we have S1 and S2 who are willing to offer at 10 rupees also. So we have a demand of 120 and a supply of 100. So in this case, the maximum trade that would be possible is 100 tons. Same at 11 rupees, we have only B1 and B2 who are willing to buy the credits at that price. But at 11 rupees, we have S1, S2 and S3. Three of them are ready to sell their credits at 11 rupees. So in that case also, the supply is 150, but here the demand becomes 90. Hence, the maximum trade that is possible is only 90 tons. At 12 rupees, only B2 will be willing to buy the credits, but all the sellers are now ready to sell their credits at 12 rupees. Accordingly, the order or the price or the trade which will happen is only for 50 metric tons. So accordingly, if you see this whole price chart, you'll understand that the maximum trade that is possible is at rupees 10. And because at that price, there is a maximum trade possible. And this is exactly the maximum price or maximum traded volume, which is there. So what will happen in this particular scenario? Now, if we see the price chart, what we understand is that B1, who had made the first bid, he will be allocated 40 metric tons of credits at the uniform clearing price of 10 rupees. B2, who was the second bidder, he will be allocated 50 metric tons of credit at 10 rupees. B3, who was the third bidder in the whole stream, but now the available quantity for B3 is only 10 metric tons. Hence, B3 will only be allocated 10 metric tons, and the rest of the order for B3 and B4 will be cancelled. See, in the same way, the order for S3 and S4 will also be cancelled. And for the next 1 week, the price which will be determined is rupees 10. Arushi, next slide, please. Yeah. So now that we have understood maximum traded volume, now we will have to understand what happens in case wherein there is there are two maximum traded trade possible or maximum traded value at two prices. In that case, what needs to be seen is the untraded quantity. So at 8 rupees, there are 140 metric tons of demand, but there is no supply. So the untraded quantity will be 140 tons. At 9 rupees, the demand comes to 120 tons, but the supply is again only 50 tons. So 120 minus 50 is 70. So the untraded quantity will become 70. At 10 rupees, the demand is 120, but the supply is only 90. In that case, the untraded quantity is 120 minus 90, that is 30 metric ton. At 11 rupees, the demand becomes 90 and the supply becomes 110. Accordingly, the untraded quantity in this case will become 120. So in this scenario, what will happen is whatever is the minimum untraded quantity, that is at price 11, that would be the uniform clearing price. Accordingly, as per the trade settlement, B1 will be allocated 40 tons at 11 rupees. B2 again will be allocated 50 tons at 11 rupees. S1 and S2 who had put the minimum selling price below 11 rupees, their orders would be cleared. S3, while they had put the bid at 11 rupees, but since there is no demand, their price will not, their orders will not be cleared. So accordingly, S3 will also be cleared, S4 will not be cleared. So S4 and B3 and B4, S4 and B3 and B4, their orders will be cancelled. And the uniform trading price for this week would be 11 rupees. So again, these B3, B4 and S4, if they want to trade or if they want to, free up their cash flow or fulfill their obligation within this week, they can trade the quantities which they had offered at rupees 11 for the remaining period until the new auction arrives. Arushi, next slide, please. Okay, now we have understood what is the exchange, how the prices would be discovered, what are the options you have available to put in or sell your credits. Now we'll understand how the trade settlement happens. So first step for this trade to happen is that the buyer needs to have certain amount as funds available in their wallet or in their ledger, just like the way we do the trading for in our demat accounts for shares, wherein we have to first keep the initial margin in our account and accordingly we are allowed to buy based on that margin. So the buyer will have to whatever demand he is putting and the estimated maximum price which he is willing to pay, he will have to put that quantity, put that amount of money in the ledger. The amount exactly would be the total value of the credits which he wants to buy or at which he is willing to buy, plus the 2% fees which he has to pay, plus the taxes, that is the GST, the TDS, TCS, all of those amounts he will have to first maintain in his ledger. Second step would be for the buyers to place the order and to seller to also place the order. But in seller's case, when they place their bids to sell their credits, their quantities would be verified with the CPCB portal through API. Wherein if they have only 10 tons in their wallet, they will only be allowed to sell that 10 tons. And let's say if out of those 10 tons, 3 tons of credits have expired, then those credits will not be allowed to be traded on the portal. Third step would be, like we understood earlier, is the whole price discovery mechanism, wherein the uniform clearing price would be determined. Fourth step would be both the buyers and sellers will get intimation about their settlement, what is the final price and how much are they required to pay. Then the buyers from the buyer's ledger, the amount will move to the escrow account. This escrow account will be owned by the EPR ETP, and it will authorize the Central Pollution Control Board to take their portion of the transaction fees also. Simultaneously, from the recyclers portal, these quantities would be blocked. Since they have been finally traded, they will be blocked but not yet transferred. The buyers in their portal, they will be shown the credits which are going to get transferred in their accounts. They will have to validate those credits, and if they have any dispute, they will raise the dispute with the EPR ETP. Once validated, these credits would be transferred to the buyer. the seller will have to issue the invoices to the buyers, and finally from 2 days from which the trade was settled, or the intimation was given, the sellers will receive their amount from the escrow account to their own ledger accounts. So this is how the exchange work, and the whole framework is like the framework which is there on India Energy Exchange, wherein the sellers have a separate GST portal wherein they have to raise the GST invoice. The buyers have to accept it, and all of those things. So the framework is somewhere in line with the IEX portal which is being currently operated. Next slide, please. So whenever a exchange is made, so you can check India Energy Exchange, you can check Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange, which regulates the share prices. All of these exchanges, they always have a bylaw or a business rule, wherein the important or the framework of how the whole thing will be operated is documented, and which is approved by the regulator, that is the Central Pollution Control Board. In the same way, the CPCB in its guideline has also said that these points are basically the points which should be available in the guidelines or the bylaws or the business rules which are made by the person who is granted, that is the MSTC. So you will expect some kinds of terms of transaction timeline. So you will understand what is the timeline, or when will the auction take place, when will the payment has to be made, what will be the transaction fees if there are any changes, what are the rights and liabilities of the members, uh, how will a default be taken care of, will there be any penalty, the clearing procedure, because putting the order and getting the order is not enough. We will have to do the whole settlement with the buyer and the seller. So all of these details, they would be mentioned in the bylaws which are going to be released by the operator before they are running the exchange. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we have reached the end of the whole explanation. I I hope I was helpful for you guys to understand what the whole exchange is about. But there are still a lot of open-ended questions for which a clarification or a sort of notification or some sort of clarity is required. Wherein if you see in EPR plastic, there the EC price is category wise, but there are a lot of credits like the UREP credits, the end of life credits, the reuse credits which are going to come. In this case, how will the pricing be there, or whether there would be a revised EC guidelines for battery waste, e-waste, tire waste? The EC rates which are given, they are primarily, or the credits which are traded essentially are the credits of the end products and not of the triple E code or the metal or battery type. So in that case, how the trading will be happening, and also for the refurbisher and the retraders, because while the EC prices are given for the end products, but there is no guidelines on how the minimum and the maximum prices for the refurbishing credits would be certain. Um, Thirdly, if you see or if you follow the notices, a lot of state pollution control boards, the Honorable High Court and the Honorable National Green Tribunal, they are through their orders or directions mandating brands or producers for region-wise specific collection of plastic waste. If this is implemented even after the implementation of the exchange, how this whole thing will work, and how will the brand fulfill those obligations along with their EPR obligations, because then it raises a duplicacy of the obligation. Further, from a regulatory point of view, whether the onus of collection of waste will shift from the producers to the recyclers, because since they would be the people who are responsible, or who are getting the benefit from the waste collection or the whole EPR framework. So that is something which is a question with a lot of producers. Lastly, there for every trade settlement, the buyer and the seller can be unique. So for people who have vendor codes, who have customer codes, they will always have to open a new customer code. They might have to issue a generic PO to just satisfy their existing ERP systems. So how will that happen, or how the brands or the producers or even the recyclers for that matter will have to work? Lastly, a lot of producers have already entered into a long-term agreement with recyclers. So, there is a clarification required on, how these settlements, or what will be the impact on such agreements which which have already been undertaken before the implementation of the EPR ETP. So, yes, Arushi, over to you. I guess this is it from my side. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Sujan. So this was quite insightful, and I hope, we were hearing about so many terms like UCP, trading, settlements, buyer price in FIFO, and everything. So I hope people have gotten some clarity on the concepts that were mentioned in the regulations. So now, to summarize a few takeaways for everyone. So EPR ETP is not just a trading platform, but it is a market structure change. And the price discovery will move from negotiations to uniform clearing price mechanism as in when the EPR ETP goes live. And then the settlement, escrow, validations, timelines, all the concepts will be system driven and they will be standardized. And the flexibility will be reduced, but transparency and predictability will keep on increasing, and the data readiness and compliance discipline will become non-negotiable going forward as soon as the EPR ETP goes live. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining in for the webinar and supporting us, since this was the first webinar that ReCirculytics is hosting, and we will definitely bring a lot more informative sessions for you so that it helps you with all of your EPR compliances and you are able to understand